So if I did spend $1,000 on something and either it didn't get delivered or it just didn't meet my expectations, the item's not working, is there any redress?
Let's say your retailers or your influencers are overseas and they don't have a registered business here in Singapore. It's going to be very difficult to claim anything against them.
So we're currently living in a time when our wallets are shrinking. Everything is so expensive. We think more than twice before we buy something. So imagine dropping 3-4 figure sums on something we've thought long and hard about buying. Only you didn't get what you bargained for. And that riles you up, doesn't it? It riles me up. I've been there before, obviously, and we're not alone. Nearly 14,000 people filed a complaint with ECase last year. That's our consumer watchdog, by the way. Now, some of the more common cases include scalping with tickets, concert tickets, event tickets, organizers refusing to refund tickets for failed events. That's another one. Beauty packages. That's familiar ground to me. I'm Andrea Heng for the Money Talks podcast, and my guest today is going to help us, aggrieved consumers, navigate this blurry space, understand our rights and routes to redress. He is Linus Ng, chairperson of the ECase Consumer Education Committee. He's also partner at Donaldson and Burkinshaw. Hello, Linus.
Hello, Andrea.
ECase, you are the consumer watchdog here in Singapore. Give us a quick summary of the most common cases that you saw last year, maybe a bit of this year as well. Any trends you are noticing?
The main three kind of complaints that we see a lot are involving motor cars, beauty, and renovation, renovation contractors, to be more precise. From time to time, we also have this sector, the entertainment sector, like what you said about ticket scalping. So we do encourage, of course, consumers, if they have got any of these issues, do come and see us, and we will be watching out for trends. And of course, we have a team of consumer relations officers that will be taking the cases and recommending some of these course of actions that they can actually take.
So say I've been duped. I'm one of the victims, right? Now, most people think it's an expensive lesson. I'll just shrug it off and I won't do anything about it. But can you actually get your money back? And if I want to get my money back, what do I have to do?
You must always start off with action. Without the first step, there won't be any more steps for you to take.
Yeah.
So take the first step, lodge a complaint, and talk to our CROs. They actually negotiate and they deal with errant retailers. And from there, they know how to assist, what buttons to press, for example. We will try to see from what angle we can try to help consumers. As to whether you can really get the monies back, or depends very much on whether the company is going to be around in the first place. So we have heard a lot of companies that actually close down. So now that in itself is one of the worrying trends, especially if we are looking at the economy. It's a little challenging nowadays.
Yeah.
And we have got companies that wants you to take up very expensive packages, like some of these prepayment packages. We have got renovation contractors that after taking your deposits, they close down or they don't deliver as per what they promised. If you do face some of this, come and see us. Start with the first step. And that's when we will advise you. But after you lodge the claim, normally we will contact the errant retailers to see what else we can do to either negotiate a satisfactory kind of settlement, either a refund, or if not, some form of resolution that is satisfactory to both parties. If you choose not to take it up, or if they choose not to respond, you can always go to Small Claims Tribunal. For consumers, there are a lot of things you can do. Don't just, sit back quietly, blame yourself. Sometimes you may be a victim of scams, or you may be a victim whereby your silence will actually encourage errant retailers to continue doing what they are doing. So don't be a silent consumer.
You blame yourself for not reading the fine print, for not doing research, but there's only so much you can do, really. So thanks for that advice. That was really encouraging for consumers. So you're not alone. Say something. So say I filed a complaint with ECase, and I guess the settlement terms are not to my expectations, or maybe I just want more out of it because I'm just so upset, right? What's the next step? Is there a level higher that I can pursue?
Well, the thing is that, of course, you can take up your own legal recourse under the Small Claims Tribunal Act itself if the amount is relatively small. But if you are talking about renovation packages that can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, that in itself can be quite troublesome, especially if, let's say, the contractors, they close shop, or the particular boutique, some of these wedding boutiques, for example, they close shops. So you got to be very careful even before you pay any money. So for us, we will encourage consumers to go for what we call case trust accredited kind of shops.
Okay.
Whereby they have this blue logo, and you can see that they actually go through a very stringent audit review.
Okay.
To make sure that they have got a very transparent process, they have got good resolution mechanism. It's mandatory for them to go for mediation, especially for in certain industries like beauty industries. We actually encourage them to buy insurance for your prepayment.
Oh.
Even if the shops close down, you can still claim against the insurers for those unused portions of your deposits.
Okay.
Now, that is a plus point for consumers to go look for we call it case trusted business, because when they go through that regime, they would have sort of passed the muster, so-called, And if there's any form of inability to resolve the matters, we might kick them out next year.
Oh, I see. That badge of honor is not to be messed with. It really is an indicator to the customer that says, even if the company falls, you are assured of proper mediation, proper dispute resolution.
We always say, sometimes when a deal is too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
It really is.
So we often wonder, why is there this mentality of consumers wanting to take advantage of certain so-called offers, which is like once in a lifetime, but it's always around. You always encourage consumers, well, don't just take their word for it. Go on the net, look at the reviews, especially in this day and age, everything is a lot more transparent.
Yeah.
Of course, you can say, they can always come up with fake reviews and all that.
That's true,
but, well, the thing is that you just got to be careful. Do your research thoroughly. And the Chinese always say 货比三家. Basically, that means you compare at least 3 shops, offering the same kind of businesses, and make sure that you are getting the best deals. Okay. So this is one of those things that you can actually do.
Circling back to what you talked about earlier, you said something about insurance, right? Is the onus on the business to buy insurance against purchases made by their customers, or can we customers also purchase insurance?
For case trusted businesses, in certain sectors, not all the businesses,
right.
We have made it mandatory for them to buy insurance or insurance contract.
So here's one space that we don't often talk about when we talk about making protected purchases. That's the online space, right? I've been influenced into buying something on TikTok Shop before. I made sure it cost no more than $5 just to be on the safe side. Others, though, not so lucky, not so prudent. They are spending a lot more money on live stream shopping, what they call shoppertainment, right? And I notice a lot of these retailers, they are either not based in Singapore or they are distributed through these TikTok profiles or influencers, and they're home-based businesses without a credible source. Like, you don't really know where these items are from. And these businesses, because they're home-based and small, they're not really registered. They're selling these things quite blatantly and openly on social media. So how do we navigate this really blurry shopping space here? I mean, what kind of aid is available if we want to seek redress for something unsatisfactory that we bought online?
You're very wise to cap your your damage, to a small, relatively small amount like $5. We have actually received a lot of complaints for this kind of claims, which is actually they bought through what we call the social media kind of business. When it comes to the ease of buying, you sit back, you look at the computer, and if someone is actually entertaining you with that kind of live stream, and there is this little bit of a FOMO kind of, mentality. You know, I
Exactly.
don't want to miss out. You know, there are like
Yeah.
5 left, and you have 15,000
And
people
they're really
asking
good
for
at
it. Yes,
that.
and then they are pushing for it. You know,
Yeah.
so this is one of the things that we encourage before consumers, before you do anything. First, find out where are these influencers from. Are they operating from any established platforms? So let's say, for example, if they are influencers doing live stream from Lazada. Or Shopee, for example, that in itself will give you some form of credibility. You know,
Right.
that there is a reputable platform that you can rely on should anything fall foul. You know, but that in itself is also not the best kind of security. The best kind of thing to do is actually you sort of cap it. Even if I don't get it, I don't feel the pain. You know, so for smaller amounts like $5. $10, I think most consumers can stomach that kind of losses. But if there's more to it, then you got to be very careful. I always encourage consumers to take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is it going to be there the next time? If it's not going to be there the next time, are you sure there's only one and only one there? You know, so a lot of times I will tell consumers that, you know, during our outreach campaigns, that the goods are always there.
Yeah.
You know, so don't worry. And when with new goods coming out, these older goods the price will drop. You know? So if
And
you
there'll be a
don't need
new
it,
version
yes,
coming out.
And if you don't need it now, don't buy it. You know,
Exactly.
Buy it only when you need it. So these are some of the questions that you should ask yourself before you jump on the bandwagon.
The FOMO culture really is real, and it's taken on this kind of new monster almost, right?
Yeah, this is something that they are banging on.
Like you cannot miss out or you'll really lose.
And unfortunately, if let's say your retailers or your influencers are overseas and they don't have a registered business here in Singapore, it's going to be very difficult to claim anything against them.
So if I did spend $1,000 on something and either it didn't get delivered or it just didn't meet my expectations, the item's not working, is there any redress?
Even if you bought it over a platform, you got to ask yourself whether are you buying it from a business,
Okay.
because our CPFTA, our Consumer Protection Fair Trading Act, actually protects consumers when they are dealing with businesses.
Okay.
So if it's consumer to consumer, for example, then that itself you don't enjoy the protection. So even if let's say you're able to locate that errant so-called retailer or influencer, you have to fork out your own funds if they are located in Singapore to sue them. You know, now that in itself it might cost you a lot more than what you have actually spent on.
And it's a lot of trouble as well.
Yes. So a lot of times we encourage consumers to share their stories, to come together and to put in responsible reviews, let's say, and this will actually encourage the behavior of the platform owners, you know, to sort of regulate and make sure that they can be seen as responsible platform owners.
Is there a Case Trust logo, like a version of the Case Trust logo for online businesses, something that we consumers can look out for?
Yes, we do. It's called ECase Trust. We have just rolled it out recently. So far, we have got 7 businesses that's on board, which includes fashion, and we will still be rolling out to attract more retailers. And of course, as consumers, you play a part, because if you only patronize shops with the ECase Trust, then the businesses gets the picture and the message to say, hey, we should be on board.
It's really good news indeed, especially now that we're shopping almost all the time online. But at the same time, you still have the big boys like Stera being found out for false advertising. You have long-established brands like Nail Palace still using aggressive tactics just to make a sale. Is it necessarily easier to seek redress from bigger companies like this one?
Once the economic climate is not so favorable, business gets tough and people will want to do less to earn more. That's how it is, unfortunately. So a lot of times, whether you're the bigger boys or you're the smaller boys, both have the same kind of mentality. So yes, to a certain extent, it's easier to go after the bigger boys because, after all, they have got a reputation to protect. But at the same time, you have to know what you are doing as a consumer. You just got to make sure that your documentation is done up properly. Read the terms and conditions. The so-called the bigger boys, in our experience, they have got better documentation, so they know how to protect themselves and they know how to craft out limitations, for example, and disclaimers. So as a consumers, you got to really look at it and make sure that you are not being crafted out. So before you enter into a contract, read the fine prints and make sure you know what you're entering yourself into.
Yeah, and don't be shy about asking those questions. Every question counts.
Yes, every question counts because every cent counts.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's in your wallet.
So what exactly do we need to look out for in that fine print? What are some of the terms that maybe we should be looking out for?
Okay, the thing is that one of the first things that you should look out for is termination.
Okay.
All right, it sounds weird, but look at how you need to get out of a contract. If, let's say, for example, there are situations whereby they have not performed or part performed their obligations under the contract. So look out for the termination clause. Look out for the dispute resolution. For example, how are they going to resolve the dispute? Is it going to be very, very troublesome for you? And of course, you look out for, on termination, there will be certain terms like compensation, or the damages clause. Look out for that and see what else are they going to cover you for.
Right.
What is not included. Look for disclaimers, that they're not holding themselves out to be responsible for certain things. Look out for all this because all these terms and conditions will be instrumental in you getting your money back, so-called money back, because the more terms that is unfavorable to you and the more they have made it known to you and yet you have entered into the contract, the more difficult it is for you to claim, there's a breach unless you're able to show very clear breaches of contracts, for example.
Yeah. That reminds me of something you said earlier. In taking the time to read the fine print, ask yourself, are you really in a hurry to make this purchase?
Yes, especially if the purchase costs a lot of money.
Exactly.
The more time that you should take to look at it, do your due diligence, do a price comparison, for example, go into the internet, do a review, look at their reviews, and then if you can, ask your friends or your family, for example, because some of them might have certain cases that they know of or they might themselves be involved in, but because they kept quiet, at least you get this wisdom, this collective wisdom from them.
I think that's really underestimated for sure. Now, I read that in 2023, Case provided advice to 84% of consumers that filed complaints on how to resolve their disputes with businesses. 16% were assisted to negotiate and mediate the disputes in businesses. So give us a comparison here. What's the difference between resolving and negotiating when it comes to the customers who file complaints at Case? And what determines a case closed?
Well, the thing is that the negotiation itself is the process. So the resolution is, I would like to look at it as the outcome.
Okay.
So if a case is being resolved, basically means that both consumers and the retailers, they have come to a conclusion. It might not be a full refund of whatever that's paid, but at least it is a satisfactory conclusion to that particular matter. Because sometimes if you look at it from a consumer's point of view, you might have spent some money, but you don't want to go through the extra or the additional expense and the time and effort in pursuing an action in court, for example. So a lot of them, for expediency, they might choose something in between. That's when the mediation process comes in. So our CROs will help to try to negotiate for something that is palatable to both parties. And at the same time, we will invite the both parties to come for mediation at our case mediation center. I must say our success rate is relatively high. It's comparable to what they have in the courts. It's about 75 to 80%. Now, even though you might not get a satisfactory resolution, you can of course still take up a case in court if you want to. But then at least you can tell yourself, I tried my best, to resolve it as soon and as cheaply as possible.
Yeah, and I think it's about making that first step, as you said all along throughout this podcast. The fact that you're not silent about it, that you're doing something about it, I think that's the most important thing.
Yes, that's important because as consumers, empower yourself. Be well aware of what you need to know. Be on the lookout for good bargains, but make sure that they are really good.
Linus, this has been really educational. We really appreciate your time coming in here to talk to us on the Money Talks podcast. If you could have a meal with any public figure, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I would love to have dinner with Obama.
Oh, I see. Tell me more.
Because I've always found him to be very charismatic and very persuasive. And I like his years of his service to the public. I find that he is someone that I look up to, someone that will serve as a very good role model. Of course, I would love to have lunch with Harris, but, she's too busy now.
She's a bit busy. Thanks very much for that. Here's hoping that you are as persuasive as Mr. Obama was in conveying this very important message to our listeners. So
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Listener, customers, I hope this conversation was as beneficial for you as it has been for me. Send us a message if you have any comments, thoughts, questions about this particular episode or any episodes on the Money Talks podcast. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts. We're also up on Spotify and YouTube Music. Don't forget to rate and subscribe if you're enjoying the podcast so you'll always know when a new episode drops. Big thanks to the team, Crispina Robert, Tiffany Ang, Junaidi Johari, Hanida Amin, Joanne Chan, To Yuan Yun, and Saya Win. I'm Andrea Heng signing off for the Money Talks podcast. Thanks for listening.